Hello, hello. This is Adam Everett Miller with aetuts.com, and I'm excited because between normal work and running aetuts and being newly married, I don't have a lot of time to create tutorials. So this is good for me. Hopefully for you too. Yeah? All right. Well, what we're going to be talking about today is 3D match moving. 3D motion tracking, which is called match moving. You have your normal motion tracking, which comes in After Effects. And then you have the new planar tracking, which is like Mocha, and that's pretty cool stuff. But then the next one would be this match moving, 3D motion tracking, basically recreating a simulated camera that moves in the same path that your real camera would move. It does the same zoom and everything. It's awesome, awesome stuff. Andrew Kramer a while back on Video Copilot had done a series, the whole Meteor series, where he had shown some techniques and had created some tutorials about this whole thing. But he used a program called Buju, which though it's awesome, it's also very expensive. And I can't afford it. So in my searching for a more cost-effective solution, I came across PFhoe. PFhoe is a program by Pixel and Pixel made PF Track, which is high-end production stuff. Really, really cool. Well, they basically used this. They took that program and boiled it down to a very user-friendly, more simple, easy to manipulate and work program called PFhoe, and that's what we're going to be working on today. There are other tutorials out there about PFhoe, so this is not overly revolutionary, but hopefully you'll find some things in here that you hadn't played around with before, and if nothing else, maybe this is just your first exposure to 3D match moving, and it's going to kind of open your eyes to the fact that your average person can do it. It's not that expensive. You should check out their website, PFhoe.com. And yeah, one last thing I will say before we get into the tutorial, Aaron Stern over at ArtBeats, there's a great tutorial. And he went through a lot of the basic stuff there. There might be some reiteration of what he had said that kind of overlaps, but a few of the things he didn't touch on, I'm going to try to touch on. And then I'm basically just going to talk about how to bring it into After Effects, and then also how to bring your solution into 3ds Max as well. So if you're ready, I am. I've been rambling. I'm sorry. Let's go hit PFhoe. All right, so here we are in PFhoe. And we're just going to come down to this little button here and import our footage. Now, as you go to import it, you're going to see, typically what will happen is there's going to be a little camera wizard, at least that's what they call it, that's going to pop up. It's going to ask you a series of questions. I tend to leave this unchecked just because I know what they're going to ask, and you don't need to do it. But basically, we'll load the footage. This isn't the final clip that we're going to be working on, but I just wanted to use this clip as an example. So the questions that they would ask you to determine the footage are basically just to figure out which of these settings it would be. Is it going to be a free moving camera, or is it going to be a kind of a still camera that moves back and forth? Well, this one in the shot you can see we're free moving. And then also it's going to look at your zoom, the focal length. Is it going to be variable, or is it going to be constant? And here there's no zooming, so it's just physical movement. And then lastly, you can see that this footage got squished, and so sometimes you need to just say nope, make sure you view it as 16:9. So here we got a shot with a little boy running in, hugging grandma. Give him a pat on the belly, grandpa, thank you very much. And that's good. Well, with this shot, okay, so now that we've imported, it's going to give us a few options here. As we continue to do more of these little buttons are going to become available. This first guy, I'm going to get back to this in a bit. I just wanted to use this shot as an example to show what this matte will do. So as you can see for this shot, if I wanted to establish and find out, kind of basically create this scene, I'm not going to want this moving boy running into the scene, because what that's going to do is really throw off the camera track. It's going to be so confused, because in one sense everything's moving, but yet you got, I don't know, these stripes especially here are moving up and down, and they're going so much different than the rest. So what you can do is create a matte. And so over here I have a matte that I've created, and basically it's the same movement, but just in After Effects, I just did a quick garbage matte around whatever was moving. So here it's the boy running in and going up to the grandparents, and then as the move, I mean, I spent maybe like 10 minutes on this. Just obviously you can see I didn't spend too much time, but just making sure that whatever there's movement that I don't want to be tracked, that will be white, and then everything else will be black. And so I can get rid of that. And so then if I come down here and import that, what's going to happen is wherever, let's see, it's thinking about it. Come on, you got it. not responding. There it is. Thank you. Got a lot of things running right now. Now you can see what's happened is where there's white, it's shown up as pink. And so as I go to track this shot, you can see that I have all these tracker points. Well, none of them are inside the pink. It's kind of eliminating any tracker points. And this is just going to save you a lot of heartache. Now, with one shot that I had recently worked on, the background ended up being a lot of like trees with moving leaves, and I couldn't figure out why is my track so funky. And I didn't take the time to realize, okay, yeah, if it's a windy day and there's a lot of leaves moving in the background, even if it's just slight movement, those are going to be points that are going to move. So this you're not going to sit there and draw little white boxes for every leaf, but for big movements like this, if there's a car driving by or a person walking onto the scene, that's pretty much where you'd want to use this mat. So that's that. That's the reason why I use this clip. So let's jump over, and I'm not going to save this shot. Let's go to the other shot that we have here, and this is the one that we're going to be looking at. And I'm going to include this in the product file, and so if you are a Plus member, you will have access to that. Cough, cough, no hints, but yeah, here we go. All right, so we have our footage here, and this is just a shot that I took outside. I actually waited until it was autumn with the leaves falling, just thought I'd have more markers to actually track. But as you can see, this is behind our studio. I just kind of walk around the corner of the building, kind of doing a full rotation here, and then slowly back up to reveal a full wall. And so what we want to start with, and as just like before, this is free motion, it's constant, we're not zooming in or out, and it's already 16 by 9, so we're good there. So we already talked about the mat, but what this button here is you notice on the end here, as this is moving forward, even though this pole in real life is a straight pole, you can see I was kind of bowing a little bit because of the radial distortion caused by the wide angle lens. It's not crazy wide, but that little bit is something that can alter your end result. One thing that I will do is, you take your camera, and because of the wide angle lens, you want to, well, what I did is I created this grid, and if you hold it up, you can kind of, from there, you'll be able to see how distorted your lens is. Now, I'm not recommending that every time that you're ever going to shoot a match-moving shot, you'll carry around this piece of paper, but it does give you an idea as far as when you're at the widest angle, how wide your angle actually is, just to see, what the distortion is, at its widest point on the edges. So that's just a tip. Okay. And so what you'd want to do is just go to a frame where when you can see it pretty clearly. So I'm going to go to 39. This is fine. And go ahead and just click that button. And it's going to process the image, and then it will create lines. Pretty much, there's a few up here, but basically wherever it sees a high contrast straight line, that's where it's going to point out. So here we got a really long one. It goes all the way here. So by just selecting that, what it does is it straightens that line and forces the whole footage, the whole composition rather, the footage out, so that it will compensate for the radial distortion. And so now as you play through, you can't really tell too much of a difference. It basically just eliminates that wide angle look, and it should make our tracking a little bit easier. Let me go back. I'm going to undo that really quick, and I'll just show you an example of what you don't want to have happen. Okay, so we're right here, and let's say that you just have a little one, or actually I'll just redo it again. Okay, you can go elsewhere and click, and you get another line. Okay, so what happens when you click that? Sometimes you'll click one and you think it's a straight line, but it's not. Just make sure that you are getting a pretty accurate straight line, and that might be a little too over the top. So let's go back to where we were, keep Control Z in it, and where was I at? I think 38 or 39, that was pretty good. So we'll go back and we'll go through this really quick here. And that was good. Actually, I think we use this one. Okay, and sweet. So next thing we want to do is we want to track our footage. So we're going to click the track button, and as you can see here, all these different points are being tracked, and you can see the motion tail or trail that they're leaving behind. This is the path that these points are moving, and most of these are shaded green. The green ones, if it's green, that means that it's pretty confident, whereas the red, that means that it's not quite sure of itself, but right now it's pretty green. And right down here we have a graph showing the confidence level of the track in its entirety. So we're doing pretty well. It does have 3 colors, green, red, and then you can see some yellow here as well. But this does take a while, so I'm going to let it do its thing. Now, really cool thing here, as it gets to the end, you're going to notice it's going to bounce right off this wall and then continue to backtrack and then retrack the whole thing in reverse this time, just to continue to increase the confidence and get the tracking points correct. What's so cool about this is you can really see it working. The ones on the outermost edge, they're really moving, so you can see how broad their motion trail is, whereas these guys are barely moving because that's kind of almost the center of the movement. And these points are not moving from one frame to the next that much. So what this is doing is it's calculating the distance from this guy to this guy to this guy, all these, and how far apart they would be if we were to recreate this scene. It's a really, really cool little process here. Okay, awesome. So we have these tracker points, and they move all the way through pretty well. And what we want to do, just since that did take a while, let's go ahead and save our shot. And we'll just save it as project file. Cool. And as you hover over any one of these points, you can see the path that point took. Now, just like earlier when we were talking, we have green is good, yellow, and then red is not so good. So like right now, you can see that a good chunk of this point right here, it's not confident. And so if you were to ever have maybe like a leaf falling in the shot where the motion tracker were to pick that up, what you can do is you can just select, you can select a group of them by lassoing around it, but you can select individual ones and then just hit delete. And what that will do is hopefully eliminate the questionable tracking points, and just keep the ones that are a little bit more confident. Well, this one's looking pretty good all the way through. So the next thing that we're going to want to do is kind of tell PFhoe what our scene is looking like. So by clicking this box right here, this button, it pops this box up. And a lot of the tutorials that I saw, they were tracking footage of like a house or a building or like a monument that has a perfect square. Well, with this shot specifically, we don't have a perfect square. Like we could try to line that up with the edge of the building here, or we could try to use like that guy in the distance, but we don't have the great perspective. So what we're going to do is just look for a straight line, and it looks like right here, this is pretty good. Or we could actually move it out a little bit further. We'll go right here. And what we're going to want to do is just line it up. Since we have this one line going straight across the frame, we try to find a good angle to line up the square. And so we'll take it right here and pop one edge up, and then we'll take the other end, and let's see what would be a good spot. Right there. What we want to do is basically pretend that this box is going to be going into the wall. And so since we have one line there and we have another line here, we want to make this go straight up and down as much as possible. So actually we want to make it go even to that. So seeing as how that pipe is kind of going over, we can move it over just a little bit, try to emulate the angle of the camera. And then from here, instead of going down, we want these guys to go up, because that's essentially what they would be doing. And we want the lines to be as square as possible. Okay, and in essence, the ultimate goal is to make this plane look as if it is, really the ground layer. So I'm not 100% thrilled. The grid, it kind of goes, it looks good there, but I'm not sure if it's 100% accurate. So we'll just kind of tweak it around a little bit. We're really trying to line up the grid with the floor. So I feel like it's shooting in a little too much there. But it's not too bad. So I think this will work. And worst case scenarios, we can always go back and tweak it later. So now that we have this basic position, let's go ahead and track or solve for the camera. Okay, awesome. So now we have a basic camera solve, and we can see all of the points that it is placed through the shot. What's really cool is you notice, okay, we got all these points right here along the edge of the wall. As we pull back, we can still see where those points would be. Even though they're technically not even existing right now in our shot, we can see where they would be through the rest of the movement. So as we're seeing, we see a lot of green dots. As we said earlier, the green is a more confident. So they go from being, not so confident right here to being more confident as the shot goes in. At this point, what we can do is we can get rid of, if there's any really, like right now, these guys are really stretching out of whack, and so these aren't feeling like they're right. And you can kind of see in general, this grid it almost seems like it's hovering above the actual ground. So what we'll do is we'll look for a confident point right along this edge here, and we will establish that as being kind of our anchor point here. So let's see, what do we got? This guy right here actually looks pretty confident. So what I'm going to do is I'll first select it, and then I'll come down here and I'm going to take my origin and bring it down to that point. So by holding down space, that's going to provide my options. I'm going to move origin to feature, being that feature right there. Okay, well, let's look at the grid. It seems to be lining up decently well. Let's see, how are we doing? Okay, and we can move that up or down accordingly, just to make sure that we have it right. And what seems good here doesn't seem as good here. And so it's going to take some tweaking. Another thing that we can do is by holding down space and you go to rotate. This will allow you to kind of rotate a little bit to get it exactly how you want it. And this isn't perfect, but it should work for what we're wanting to do now. But if you do run into some problems where you're just really not getting an accurate match move, there's a few things to solve that. Number one, obviously, just back up and redo it. Make sure that the box is put it accurately, and then just make sure you get rid of any red points that are just obviously bad. Now this, as you can see, is not perfect, but when it comes to match moving, honestly, you need to do a job as good as it needs to be done. With what we're going to be trying to do now, I'm just going to be throwing in some text hovering here. So it's not as crucial that we get our points spot on. Now, if we're going to be having, an explosion coming out of the wall or something resting on the ground, you need to spend a little bit more time to make sure that it's accurate, just because you don't want to have sliding. But especially when you're dealing with hovering text or anything in the sky, or even just something in the environment, you don't have to kill yourself on making it spot on. As long as you're pretty accurate, you should be fine. I'm only saying that from experience, just because I've killed myself over stupid products that at the end it really wasn't even that important. But let's say that you aren't really thrilled with your result. Let's find a decent spot. Okay, right here, this leaf is in the shot, but there's only one tracker on it, and it picks up right there. But let's say that you have a spot. Actually, let's use maybe this little guy over here, that it's in the shot for a while, and that one has a go. Okay, I'm going to get rid of. Let's get rid of this initially. Delete. Holding down. Delete. Okay, I'm going to track this spot specifically because where it kind of lays these guys out somewhat randomly. And so if I see a spot that I want to be tracked, I can go in here and by clicking this button, I simply hit space and then add new feature. And then by grabbing the middle, I can drag it right over to this guy and select that. But by the way, just as far as moving around, if you hold shift, you can drag around, and then if you hold alt, you can zoom in or out. So just to make sure that we know what we're looking at. You can also make this smaller if you want to be more specific. But from this point, I'm going to back it back out again. Let's go ahead and hold down space, and then we want to track backwards. And it's going to track just that one point, and it's going to slowly start to lose its confidence as time goes on, but it looks like it's keeping itself pretty well. Okay, a little fickle in here, but it's going strong, Let it go all the way through. Okay, and by the end, it's kind of out of there. We'll just finish it out, and we can drag it. At any point here, you can fix it and drag it. Okay, well, let's go back to where we started, and then we'll do the same thing, space, and we'll track forward. And it should end, yeah, right at the end of the shot. Okay, well, and I can back it out to show you that it's the end of the shot. Okay, so we have one point that we've told it to track specifically. Well, now, since we're confident with that, looks like it's pretty spot on, what we can do is hold space and click solve feature. And what that does is it puts a marker where our track was. It's from this point to that point. it exists. And so it's not 100% spot on, it's kind of rotating around it, but just for as an example to show you, and you can do this as many times as you want, add new feature, reset feature, track forward and backward, or remove them all. Now that we have one that we've just kind of a camera solve location that we put in there, we can get off that, hold down space, and we can try to improve the solution. Now we've only done one, but if we were to do this say 20 times, by improving the solution, it should get a much better result. So let's try that. It'll reprocess it, and hopefully it'll get the movement a little bit more spot on. You can see it's just done some slight alterations, and let's see if it has fixed. Let's go ahead and take off that mode. It has adjusted our grid slightly, and hopefully gotten a little bit better of a solution. I do feel like this end's a little higher than that end, but that's okay. Let's move on so that we're not wasting time. These last two buttons right here, actually I'm going to save this just so we have it. Project file, yep. And these last two buttons, notice how, remember how we had kind of expanded these edges here? Well, if we go to drag the footage into After Effects or 3ds Max or something, it's going to be the original source footage. It's not going to be this adjusted footage. So what we want to do, I'm going to pause. I didn't even address this area down here. If you come down here, you can, here, let's move up a little bit. What this does is by switching from 2D to 3D mode, you can play through your footage, and it's going to, let me pause it, by not holding it down Shift or Alt, you just click and drag, you can rotate your footage. So I'm going to back out. This shows the motion path of the actual camera itself. So as you hit play, it's going to go through and do the exact same movement that you did. This part is what really, this sold me. I thought this was so cool. You can kind of see the line from where the wall would be, but it's going through and actually recreating the exact movement. As I came and filmed this in real life, I went to a certain point and then I kind of slowly took a couple steps forward again. So this just helps you to get a visual of what the real movement is. Shift to move around, Alt to zoom in and out, and nothing to rotate. Okay, well, getting back out of that, cool. Just to see that so that you get a better visual. Maybe that'll help you understand, if your track is on or off. What this is doing is you can now export an image sequence of, basically, it will export the adjusted video. So I'm going to do that. Let me go to my thing right here, quick here, desktop, that, and let me just title it. Okay, it'll be a PNG sequence, and I'll just type sequence here, and then I'll export it. As far as file type IMS, you can render it out as a QuickTime AVI. You could, an IMS is just the image sequence, but you can do an AVI or a QuickTime movie. Let's actually do a QuickTime movie. That would be cool as well. So I'll go sequence, and I will save. Okay, now that we've done that, as I'm looking at this a little bit more as it was saving, I'm realizing like this isn't the greatest. So what I'm going to do really quick is just see if I can just adjust that. I think it had gotten a little bit rotated. Yeah, hopefully that's better. Okay. All right, so finally, what I'm going to do is now I need to export the camera for both After Effects, 3ds Max, whatever program you use. So let's save it really quick. Product file, good, yes. And all right, here we go. Well, I'm going to save two. I'm going to save one for 3ds Max, which we will use here shortly. Let's go to, oopsie. Desktop, tracking, and okay. 3D camera solve, okay. And I can click OK. And then let's also, while we're here, let's save an After Effects, which is a Maya camera. And so in Aaron Stern's thing, he said to upgrade it, he said that 500 works well for him. So we'll try that. I actually have always just used 100, but I just watched this tutorial today, so I'm going to try that out and see if that's better. And we'll click OK. Sweet. So now it's time to move over into After Effects. All right, so here we are in After Effects, and what we can do is, let's just import our sequence. If we click on one and then just come down and make sure that JPEG, it's kind of hard to see, I guess. Let's make it smaller. Make sure the JPEG sequence is selected. we can, yeah, open that up, and then we'll drag that into new comp, and we'll go through and check it out. So that's looking good. Keep in mind that this here, let me actually import the other thing, the footage.movie. Okay, so this is the original one. And as we'll bring it closer to the bar, that's the original, and then remember that we had exported the adjusted footage for tracking better. So we're going to be using this adjusted one. So for the time being, let's just get rid of what we don't need. Okay, next thing that we're going to need is we're going to need that project file, that camera. So we just go in, it's an MA file, so we just click it and click open. And what that's going to do is that's going to import its own composition with all of these solids. So it's called project file. So as we open this guy up, we're going to see like a bajillion of these little null objects. And as we scrub through, it basically creates a null for every single one of those point trackers there. And a little bit overwhelming. What I used to do is I would sit there and like, let me make this bigger. I'd sit there and like grab a bunch of them and then delete them, and then like leave one and then grab a bunch and delete them. And just because there's too many to work with, it just gets annoying. But then actually what Aaron Stern did was he grabbed like, he would just go through and grab a random selection of them along the way. He actually grabbed the ones that he thought would be helpful. I'm just going to grab random ones. I figure if they're spread out, that means that they're probably spread out in position as well. Going through, and let me just do this till the end. And then with all these, I just change the color to something else like orange. Then everything else, I select that color group, and you can, did I not do that? Oh, I did do it. Okay, yep. Grab that color group, and for the time being, you can just turn them off. And to get them out of your way, you can hide them. And I thought that not everything, oh, did I select everything? No, that's good. You can hide them, and now you're stuck with just your orange ones. And even the orange ones I have too many of, so I'm gonna like just get rid of like half these guys. Okay, cool. So now I just have a few basic ones, and this is just to show me what I am working with here. So I have that. What I'm gonna do is take my sequence and drop it in on top. Maybe I did that too far. And so now you can see that it moves with the scene. Pretty stellar. And so right off the bat, actually, you know what? I'm just going to get rid of these altogether. I can still see them now, but they're just not cluttering up my timeline here. I'm going to go ahead and save this really quick, just to desktop, untitled project, sure. And all right, sweet. So now we have this scene imported into our composition. So what we can do is we can basically just, let's just create some text. We'll say AE Tuts, and we'll make it considerably larger, and maybe a nice font that'll whatever, not a big deal. And then if we make this a 3D layer, it will place it right in the scene. And then just kind of getting a feel for where that is in comparison. I mean, it's right there. We'll want to take it and hitting W, rotate it so that it would be, when we back all the way out, yeah, let's make that considerably larger. Epically huge. And yeah, so now as we move, we can see that it's just in our scene. And when it's floating, you know, it doesn't really matter. Yeah, this was the point I was trying to make earlier, that especially if we're just trying to have floating text here on screen, it's not that crucial that we get an exact perfect match, just because some slight slipping, say that 10 times fast, when it's hovering in the air isn't going to be that noticeable. Okay, so we have this. Well, let's take and in the preview, what I did was I just created a shadow. So what I can do is create a new solid really quick, and let's make it 3D. Okay, and I'll bring it up, and I will W rotate it. Okay, and let's see how this guy compares. Let's try to line it up with the wall as best as we can. Let's see, where would the wall be roughly? Let's see how that feels. We'll back it up a hair more than that. And okay, it looks like it might need to go back just a little bit further, but not a big deal. Okay, and again, this is just pretty rough. I'm just putting this together, and then from there, let's just scale it way up, and we'll move it over. You can see that the angle isn't 100% right. I could probably use a little bit more rotation. But yeah, by scaling it way up, actually, you know what, as I'm thinking about it now, when you export that camera, when you scale it to 500, it makes all this stuff, I guess it makes this smaller, because I'm not used to having to scale stuff up this far, so maybe I shouldn't have done that. But it's okay, we're experimenting and learning together. This is not exact, but it will still work to show off the basic principle. Okay, as we back up, we want to, let's actually make this layer solid. We'll make it a white layer. Okay, and then we want to create a new light, and we will make it a spotlight. Okay, cool. And we'll move it up, and we'll move it over and out, and then we'll rotate this guy so that it faces the wall, right? Okay, so now what we want to do is take this light, go to Layer, Light Settings, and click Cast Shadows. Okay, and then we want to go to this guy, this white layer, Material Options, and have Cast Shadows on. I'm sorry, not Cast Shadows, but Accept Shadows on, which it does. So we actually want to go to the text, go to the material, and do Cast Shadows on. There you go. So now, and we can diffuse that a little bit just so that it's not, oh, actually that's just the lighting that we're diffusing. We want the shadow to diffuse a little bit. So that would actually be it back up in the light settings. Shadow diffuse right here. Well, it didn't do too much because of the scale that we're working with, but basically as I move this guy around, I have a light, but it's on that right now. So what we want to have it do is, yeah, we want to go into the material options here and go accepts lights off, and what that's going to do is just show up the the shadow here as we move the light back and forth. And I might have done this invertedly, but basically it's creating a shadow there. So now as I take this guy, hitting F4, I can bring it up. I can just go multiply, and that's going to create a, selecting the light, it will create a shadow on that background layer accordingly. And I can back it up so that it does that. But so you can see basically the principle involved here. And you know, at this scale, I would probably just maybe add a little blur to that. But also then with this AE Tuts, as I move this around, like moving it out further, it's going to get bigger as it gets closer to the light, to the point that it's actually clipping off of the solid. But that's how you would create a basic shadow here within 3D. So take advantage of that and play with it. It's kind of fun. The next thing, what's really cool about this, okay, well, that doesn't look overly incredible. You're not going to see that on a commercial too soon. So what's really fun is, let's just get rid of these guys right now. And we still have our comp. Let's create a new solid, and let's add particular to it. Oops. All right, let's grab particular and drag it over. Thinking about it, there it is. Okay, and we want to set our emitter. Let's take the point, and we want to bring it up here a little bit more. Actually, check it. Let's take, where is my emitter position? Let's crank it up so that now, as we move around, we're going to actually be moving through an emitter. And I think they actually have some presets here. What are the presets? Organic lines, that's one of them. Organic motion, maybe. I can just pop that on top and then get rid of the other particular. Let it think for a moment. And then I'll just, I'll get rid of this first one. Okay, so then I'll go into the emitter here and I will adjust that, bring it up, and let's bring this guy out. And then let's go down here into physics really quick just to make this thing look a little bit fatter. And into air, and then we'll take this spin amplitude and we'll kind of crank it out a little bit. Okay. And then what else would we want to do? Anything, air resistance, maybe just to slow it down. Okay, well this will make it a fatter guy. And then lastly, we can make the size just a hair larger. Okay, so now we can see that we actually have some particles. So as we come around, we're actually seeing that we are moving around in the world. We're moving around these particles. And so this is just an example to show, but this could be anything. This could be flames coming out. This could be, you know, like using the force, or remember like Street Fighter, how they used to shoot each other with like the, you know, the beam of power. There's a lot of options here, especially when the fact that we're having a, the fact that we've recreated this environment. So now when we enter in 3D space, it will, you know, a 3D particle emitter will really, I mean, you could have snow falling, you could have anything you want to. Lots and lots of options here. I hope that this is getting you guys excited. Obviously, we'll need to go through and mask that out. But just within After Effects alone, there are tons and tons of fun things that you can do with this. We're going to get over into 3ds Max here in just a moment. Actually, I'm probably going to make that a part 2. So let me do that. I can. You understand the basics of masking. Let me just, I'll mask it really quick. Duplicate the layer, okay, drag it up on top, and then we will go in here. I don't know if you guys know this, but if you hold down space, you can drag around. That everyone knows. But in 3ds Max, you hold down the middle like scrolling button, you can grab that and rotate around. I was used to working in 3ds Max, so I came over here and I actually did it, but it actually worked, so it's kind of cool. So instead of holding on space and dragging, you can actually just grab the middle scroll wheel and do it. Anyway, so with this, you'll want to, all right, so you guys understand the basics of masking. Obviously, we would need to mask that out because that is no good. So we would just duplicate that layer by hitting Control D, bring it above the other one, and then, you know, just create a mask around the pole. Dragging it roughly. I'm not going to be that exact. Holding down Control will allow you to see these pivot points. Okay, and then just hit M to bring it up. Mask path, drag it forward a little bit, and hitting V, we can just kind of bring that over here. Yeah. And you'll go through and do this more specifically, but just so that you're seeing and understanding what you would want to do. This is a really, really fast job, but we would just take the same thing and go from here. Okay. But you're getting the rough idea. So from there to there, obviously I'd fix all this, but that would basically mask it in front. And so if you see this layer solo, it's just that. You guys understand masking. Okay, I don't need to do that. But yeah, I think I'm going to make a part 2 of this, which is going to be going over into 3D Studio Max and then generating a model in that environment and then bringing it back over to After Effects. So I hope you guys have enjoyed part 1. I know it's gotten a little random at the end, but yeah, this is it. PFhoe, motion tracking, camera solve, and After Effects. See you guys later.